This chart shows a grouping of the various SQL commands. We will be focusing on this group of commands here. The Data Definition Language, or DDL, gives us commands to describe how the data should reside in the database. We can create, change, and delete databases and tables. The Data Manipulation Language, DML, contains the most commonly used SQL statements. We have already been using the select statement. Today we will look at the insert, update, and delete. The Data Control Language, or DCL, contains commands that grant privileges and rights to control the database. And the Transaction Control Language, or TCL, deals with transactions. We will not be covering that in this class. The SQL INSERT statement is used to add a record or records to the database. Whenever you fill out a form, such as a registration form or an order form, that data is typically being inserted into the database as a new record. The insert command is followed by into, which indicates the table name. The column names are specified in the parentheses. The values indicates the values that will be inserted into those columns in that order. You do not have to insert a value into every column if those columns can have a null value. However, if you are inserting a value into every column in that table, then you can eliminate the column names and use this shortcut. If the first column in a table is an auto number, you don't know what that number will be, so you can just skip that first column and the database will fill that in for you. If you are adding values into the specified columns, you can insert multiple records at once. You would only need one insert into statement and then just add the values for every record. Note that at the end of the value statement, we place a comma. The semicolon at the end of any SQL statement is not needed in phpMyAdmin. However, it will be needed in PHP. phpMyAdmin has an Insert tab, which gives you a very easy way of inserting a new record. It gives you the ability to enter 2 records at once. However, you can change that to more or less. It also shows you the column names in the selected table so that all you have to do is fill in the values. Notice that if there is a default value defined in that table, it will be visible here. So in this example, I am adding a new city called Able to the city table. And because the first column is an auto number, I will leave it blank. You can preview the SQL ahead of time. However, you will always see it afterwards also. Once you enter the values, you click the Go button. You will see that your result was indeed inserted by the success statement, and it will also show you the ID of the new row. Below that, you actually see your insert statement, and the insert statement also pops up in the SQL box there. Note that we are in the SQL Query tab at this point. This is where you have been typing in your SQL queries. You can also type in the SQL in the SQL Query tab, as we have been doing so far this semester. Note at the bottom of the white box, we have some buttons that will automatically give you a template for that SQL statement. So I will add another city called able2, and because I am inserting a value in every column, I do not need to include the column names. Note that these values are quoted. If they are a string value, they will be quoted. If they are a numeric value, they do not have to be quoted, but if they are, it will not cause an error. If I scroll down to the end of my city table, I will now indeed see my two rows that I have just added. Notice they have sequential IDs. Again, these are automatically generated using the auto number feature of the database. Now I am using a where clause with a condition on the country and the district so that I only see the cities in the state of California. Notice that my two added records are up top. Notice that Anaheim has a much lower ID number than able2. The ID number is generated when that record is added to the database. If a row were to be deleted, that generated number would never be used again. The SQL update statement is used to update a record or records in the database. So we use the update command with the set keyword, and you don't necessarily need a where condition, but you almost always will. So we are setting a column to a value. You can set one column or multiple. So essentially we are changing a value in a column in the database. The where clause specifies which record should be updated. If you don't have a where clause, all of the records in the table will be updated on that column. So be careful when you use this to make sure that only the records that you want to be updated are being updated. So I will use the SQL tab for this query. I am updating the population for the city of able2. So I have my update command and the set keyword, my column population, and the new value is 600, where the city name is able2. Now you see the result that one row was affected. It means that the query was executed, and again it shows you the SQL code that was used. If we go back and look at the data, now we can see that the population column indeed has been changed. The SQL delete statement is used to delete a record. We have the delete command and the where keyword. Obviously, we have to specify which table we're deleting the record in. The where condition specifies which record or record should be deleted. If you omit the where clause, you will delete every record in that table. So please use this with caution. If you recall earlier in this class, we talked about the primary key being used to uniquely identify every record. Typically, the where condition uses the primary key. However, there may be certain conditions when other criteria may be used. Now I will be using my unique ID 4081 to delete that record from the city table. This unique ID points to the record with the able2 city that was recently created. Notice that MySQL gives you a very nice warning here. It's giving you a second chance to think about what you're doing because this is not reversible. Once you delete a record, or unfortunately many records, they are gone for good. It is always a good idea to back up the database, which will be covered later. Once I say OK, It shows me that one record was affected, and it shows me the SQL that was used. Now when I go back to the result set and I look at the end of the city table, I see that able to is no longer there.